Hey Andre, how's
Hey,
things down under?
good, good. It's very quiet. It's the last days of summer. We've had the two last hot days we'll have, and I'm pretty sure they're done and gone. Last few 30-degree days. So it's cooling down.
Interesting.
So I was just talking to Teo and another guy on Bridge of the Meaning, and I was telling him how Father Eric said I was based one time, and trying to put forward the concept of was Jesus based? Because I don't think he was cringe. What would you say?
Hello, David. How you doing?
Hello. I like the image of after Jesus says stuff, when it specifically says they did not know what to say. Instead, someone in the crowd just goes based.
I try to translate the New Testament for Zubers. I thought like the idea that Christianity is really just a vibe check in a way. It's like a big vibe check.
Vibe check.
Yeah, so when you get a vibe check, it's like you either pass the vibe check or you fail it. So if someone throws a vibe check at you, if you're not keeping the vibe, then you fail the vibe check. But if you pass the vibe check, then you've got the vibe. Maybe it's a very millennial thing.
Yeah, I've seen someone did like the New Testament in modern slang, and I hate it. I hate it so much.
I'll have to look that up. I did find of it. Someone put Heidegger's Being in Time into the parlance of Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and it's it's very funny. It's called like being Izzle and Time Izzle. It's like I'll see if I can still find it. It's like saying like the quality of being for itself relies upon being towards the hood and rolling with the homies. And this is kept in one's Dasein as one keeps it holy with the keeping it real of the world or something.
Chezi Spiro, all the way from Jerusalem. How you doing? You're echoing. I don't know if you're still up. You are still echoing. One, two, three, mic check. Yep.
Echo.
Just say stuff. Worth hearing.
Well, we lost Chezi. So, David, what have you been up to?
It's just about to be Easter. Getting a little bit busy. I've been painting. I think you saw earlier versions of that, so I was working on that a bit today. Working on my day job while I'm having this conversation. If you hear the clicking away,
is your day job?
I'm what's called an estimator. So I work for a window and a glass company, and when they build a condo, everything that's
you are and we can't hear you. We can't hear you, but we hear ourselves.
So everything that's glass and aluminum, I put into, I do a measurement and account, and then put that into a computer program that comes up with a price. So grade 5 math. But I do it for a very long time and then come up with a $5 million job that's just the glass on the exterior of one of these guys.
Do you get $5 million?
No.
Okay, let's see if Chezi's working. You're not echoing. And we hear you.
Oh, wonderful.
Hey,
Yes. Hello, Jacob.
Hello, Chazi. How are you doing?
I'm good. I had a quick little conversation with Andre, actually, and then I thought my day was done, but I was sent on a mission. So I had a few more minutes to talk, and your books arrived.
Thank you.
So I guess the next day, I mean, not tonight, but tomorrow or the next day, I'll send it out most probably. If not, like I told you, I'll take it with me to the States this next week, and I'll send it from New York.
Aha. So Chazi is being nice enough to get me books from Israel that I haven't been able to procure in the United States for some reason.
What is community for, Jacob, if not to work together and help each other out?
Very nice of you, Chazi.
see that's based, as we'd say. Is he based right there?
My son and I might decide to listen in to some of the Judges live stream. He is starting the book of Judges next week, so I'm gonna get involved with that.
Wonderful.
And, hopefully we'll catch up to where you guys are at.
Yeah, I am loving the Judges conversations that we're having. Sandy is now a regular attender, and I love what she brings to it. And yeah, I'm very, very. The way that I say it to my friends is that all the Orthodox Jews that show up, they keep me honest.
Well, Yosef for sure. The boy has a lot of comments. And somehow he always manages to be like, well, recently there was a dig. I don't know where he knows all this information from. He's like Encyclopedia Brown.
He reads a lot of the most recent scholarship. That's the thing. He keeps up with like the biblical scholarship. Yosef is what do they call it? Still waters run deep. Like he spends a lot of time studying things that he doesn't say anything about, and then suddenly he whips it out of nowhere and like starts talking. Like some of you guys may remember a little while back, there was somebody who started talking about very high Kabbalistic ideas and quoting the Zohar, and I'm like, and out of nowhere, Yosef's like, "You're misquoting the Zohar," and he like brings out the commentaries on the Zohar, and I'm like, I see, Yosef. You've been hiding behind it.
What's impressive is that that's not his that's not his focus.
No,
as in you're getting someone giving you I'm aware of all this information. I don't focus on this information. So it's quite he really is a rock star. So it's very nice to have him in this little corner.
It's calm and Mr. Two.
I'll be able to join some of those classes. We will see, but I'm glad that you're having those classes anyways. I think it's fantastic.
I love it. I absolutely love the book, and it was one of those things where I went through it over and over and over again, and then it started really emotionally affecting me, and it was so interesting because to me, it's like it's stories that get told not for their dramatic effect. I feel like in a lot of scenarios, I think it might just be the way that like children's Bibles and stuff get written, where it's just plot, and plot is not drama. And I just absolutely love the drama of the book.
Oh, I mean, so much drama. Giftach and his daughter.
Yeah,
that's a whole can of worms right there. Obviously, the whole story of Samson is also just like bananas. That whole story is a little nuts.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot there. Actually, not to hit a sore subject necessarily, but why? Like, is the virgin birth so miraculous after the story of Samson? Because that's also a miraculous birth.
Yeah.
No?
Oh, it's absolutely without a doubt in the same line. It is trying to pick up on exactly that pattern. Now, whether or not you think it is successfully doing it, that's different, but it is without a doubt lining up with that. And I actually think that trying to understand, for me at least, I think if you compare Samson with the Jesus narrative, it then helped me understand bits of the Samson narrative as well, where there's aspects of him that actually are more like Joseph than you'd think.
Samson, you're saying?
Yeah.
Well,
Specifically, the idea that he defeats more in his death than he ever did in his life.
He defeats more with his death than he ever had, that he ever did with his life.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the end of the story.
Right. Samson, nafshi mot plishtim. I will die with these Philistines over there. That's true. I mean, the fact that he's sort of like a microcosm of the whole book of Judges. He keeps on making the same mistake again and again and again.
Yeah, that's that is also my theory. The transition, which everyone thinks is throughout the whole book, everyone did what was right in their own eyes. That doesn't start until Samson, and Samson says it about himself, not regarding the people. He says about the foreign woman, "She is good for me in my eyes."
Well, I mean, it's also in the backdrop of the fact that his name, even though the rabbis did many attempts of showing why the name is really a reference to God, considering also the fact where he lived, it's most probably a pagan name that he took on.
Right.
So I'll just point that Manoach, Samson's father, he doesn't believe his wife in the beginning about this whole angel interaction, and you could see that stressed in the text where she tells him, this is what the angel told me, I'm gonna have a baby. Now you have to assume on his attitude, he's like, it sounds like you're just telling me that you had sex with someone in the field, basically, and now you're telling me all these promises.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about. When she goes back, when they go back to Medina the second time, it says she runs and he walks. He's like walking behind her. He's not really buying this. And then when they see the angel, he's like, okay, so what do you want? And he tells him everything your wife said. Because like he doesn't even trust.
Wow.
Only once he realizes that does he fall down on his knees and he's like, oh shit, like this is legit. This is actually happening.
Well, in some traditions, it's Samson. Well, in some Second Temple literature, Samson is a giant. Like there's the possibility that seems like he could be Nephilim or something like that, or is he like like he somehow overlaps with these ridiculous, powerful figures? And the question about her private time with the angel, some commentaries went into some weird directions with that.
I understand. So you're saying they would be working off of Daughters of Men and Sons of God to be another version.
Yeah, exactly. Where
You're
like, what is going on?
The Nephilim story, right? I got you.
Yeah.
There's another sense of reading into that, because after they have kids, the Daughter of the Man and Son, that's the age of the heroes, and the heroes are Noah, Abraham. Those are the heroes, and the idea is like there is a version, first off, of like this more enlightened individuals and less enlightened individuals, and their offspring are like the heroes we are now going to read about, basically, in the continuation of Genesis.
Yeah.
If you'll excuse me on that note, I'll be back in a moment.
No problem. Jacob, I didn't mean to make this Judges Part 2.
Hey, it's beautiful. It's better than anything I have.
Judges Part 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
No, if people, I mean, frankly, so the first time I tried to read Judges, I tried to read it in English, and I couldn't understand at all what was going on. And so I switched to the Hebrew, and I was like, Oh, there are a bunch of puns and poetry and like
Yeah.
wordplay all over this thing, and so I was like, okay, this is a far more allegorical text than than a translation into the English would lead you to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I honestly, it's not something I have a lot of interest in. So I'm glad you're bringing this channel back to like Bible stuff as opposed to the stupid stuff I talk about.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I was talking to a friend about this little corner of the internet because he didn't understand it, and I started talking about it, and he was someone who liked Peterson a little, like some of Peterson's material, but then just went, I don't like the political direction that a lot of this stuff went in. And for me, I'm very similar. I'm like, politics is one of those things that I can become interested in, but I'm interested in bigger other things, and I kind of want to get at these larger stories. Yeah,
That's funny because I started because of the political, and I ended up in the religious, because when you see what's going on with the political, I mean, the biggest political fight on Twitter yesterday was about Christ is King, right? And so, like, yeah, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. This brings me back. Actually, I think the last time I had a conversation with you, we were talking about this because it's part of my theory about the cursing of the heretics.
What about it?
It's that because you had said, so this is my recollection of it. You had said, I don't know why Christians wouldn't feel like they're able to say it.
Yeah.
And my perspective on that is, and I could be wrong, but there are phrases that I agree with and I also disagree with based on how it's used, right? So Jesus will say something like, you have heard it said, but I say to you. And when he says, but I say to you, he just says what the Torah originally said. He's not disagreeing at all with the Torah. He's reiterating exactly what Torah teaches, but the way that the verses would be emphasized would give its interpretation. So to explain this to other people, we all agree Black Lives Matter. We all agree all lives matter. And we agree to them. We agree to them to such an extent that we don't see any controversy in saying either one of those statements. Right? I agree. God is great, right? Allah Akbar. I feel completely comfortable in all circumstances saying that because God is great. And because the truth in that statement is always true, then it's never controversial, right?
Right.
It's that you could say something and the thing you say is completely true, but you know what the person's getting at by saying it.
I hear you, and you're absolutely right. What gets me is I dislike when people say one thing and mean another.
Yes.
Right? And they are saying X.
Jacob, you just explained to me why you're not married. One of the real growing as a married man was realizing, stop listening to the words that woman is saying, figure out what she's getting at, which might be the exact opposite of what she is saying.
Oh, that's so funny you would say that. So,
Because the first time I did it, I was like,
Yeah.
I am such an asshole because I'm going to now tell her what she's actually getting at. But if
so-
you're right, oh, so sweet. She's like, oh my God, yes.
so
that is right.
okay,
Sure, go
so
ahead.
in Genesis,
Yeah.
God says when Sarah wants to kick Ishmael out of. Can you guys hear the noise behind me? Okay.
No?
So when Sarah wants to kick Ishmael out, God says to Abraham, "Shma bekolah," listen to her voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who. It might even be Rashi, but one of the rabbis, one rabbi went, "This is Shma Bekol, to hear someone's voice means to listen beyond their words, to try to understand what, and that's why actually in the Amidah, the final bakasha, the final request we make is Shma Kolenu, listen to our voice. We don't say Shma Devarenu, listen to our words, or Shma Bakashatenu, or listen to what we ask for. We say Shma Kolenu, right? Listen to our voice. And yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that lots and lots of rabbis say about husband and wife. As a husband, you should always listen to your wife's voice. That doesn't mean you should listen to what she says.
Ben Shapiro has a thing he said once, which I took seriously. He says, I speak when my wife asks me a question, I ask her, is this a listening question or an answering question? Right? Is this you telling me something because you want to vent and then I'll just keep my mouth shut? Or is this you actually asking for my advice? Because when I used to talk to my wife and she's like, oh, I was hanging out with Becky and she was so annoying. I'm like, oh, great. Don't talk to her anymore. And then that's solved. She's like, no, that's not what I mean.
No, we're
I mean,
getting at, yeah.
well,
and honestly, this is the whole Freudian thing, is this idea of you're actually saying something that you're not saying. You're getting at something that you're not actually verbalizing. What are we really talking about? Like,
what are we really talking about up here?
And let me tell you, I have a friend who got divorced, and when he was in the middle of his divorce, he was posting a ton on social media. I knew someone and they were involved in a play, and stuff with the play was really going down the drain. And all of a sudden they start posting all the time on social media, trying to get into arguments with people online. And it now has become like a truism for me. If I see people posting, I just go, uh-oh, hope they're okay. Right. And they would say, no, I want to talk about whatever, the minimum wage. I want to talk about whatever. Just like, no, don't stop listening to what they are saying. Listen to what they're getting at.
Jacob gave a good example there with hearing your voice and like saying like, listen to what they're trying to say or the intentionality of what they mean. You could see this also with Sarah, with her two sons. So there's Isaac, and then there's Ishmael, of course. Well, not her son, but there was a tension there, which is she gets very upset. She kicks Ishmael out. In Hebrew, it says "Vayitzachak hanar," and the boy laughed. And now you can be like, why is she getting mad about him laughing when her son himself is named Yitzchak? And the difference is Isaac is named I will laugh. And that is talking about the laughter that will happen at the end of times. Eventually, there will be a reason to laugh in this world. Yishmael laughed was a present laugh. And she's like, there's nothing to, like the world that we live in right now, there's no reason for you to be laughing in such a way And again, she was reading the intentionality, hearing it within the within the laughter. There's like a future laughter and there's a present laughter, and each one means something else.
I think this is an Onion article. This was an Onion headline that was local man unsure if he is being bullied or bonding. It was just that idea of like, what do we mean by what is going on right here? Are we
That's
fighting?
funny.
Do we dislike each other? Which is also one of those things that with the first girl I ever dated, I was a friend with her and treated her like one of my male friends, and she got mad at me, and I was very confused. I was like, I thought this is what fun is. No. No, it is not.
Jacob, do you mind? Can I ask you to open up the first Rashi of Vayikra?
First Rashi of Vayikra.
I was, as I do every week, studying with my grandfather and learning with my grandfather, and I was just talking about Christianity a little, and I was talking about how there's always that dichotomy of like Judaism is like the religion of law, and in Christianity you have this religion of love. And so my grandfather was like stopped me while I was saying that and pointed me in his infinite wisdom to the first Rashi of Vayikra. And when Jacob opens it up, he will read that to us. And
well,
I think
I can already tell your grandfather is much wiser than you, because the one thing Christianity is not is a religion of love. But here we go. Vayikra El Moshe, and he called to Moses. Lekol divrot ulechol amirot ulechol tzivuyim kadma kriya lashon chiba. So any time that it says first called before any commandments, it is a term of endearment. Lashon, what?
I was going to say, it's what he's saying is before all the commandments, before all the regulations, before any of that, first there's the primordial call out, which is the context of endearment, of love. So it's important for us to remember this as Jews, when there's all the things that we do, this commandment, that commandment, to realize the discussion is always happening in the backdrop of love. First, there's the call out. Then we can get into the nitty gritty. But it just was beautiful to me, and I just wanted to point it out.
Lashon shemalachei hasharet mishtamshim bo, the language that the ministering angels use. Shneamar v'kara zeh el zeh, like it says, he called this to the other in Isaiah 6. Aval lenevi'ei umot ha'olam nigla alehem b'lashon arai v'tum'ah. Shneamar ve'yikar Elohim el bil'am. You want to translate that one for us?
Sure. I've spoken about this before. I don't feel bad about this. There's God speaks. First of all, it's beautiful because it's another testament again, which the Bible is telling us God is speaking to everyone, not only the Jews.
Yeah.
It stresses the fact that it speaks to Jews in a different frequency than it does to the other worldly prophets. And okay, no problem. That goes back to,
he says, to other prophets, it says Vayikar, he happened upon them. Like it says for Bilam in Bamidbar. What's Bamidbar? Bamidbar is Exodus? No, it's not. It's
Deuteronomy.
No, Bamidbar is not Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is the
Sorry.
Numbers. It's Vayikra is Leviticus, and just for Elijah, Shadow decided to show up. So there you go.
I got you. By the way, but that is coupled with the Midrash. The Zohar talks about how when Abraham gives the concubines kids gifts in Genesis, it the Zohar says he gave them Shemot Hatumah, right? He gave them the names. Basically, the gift to the concubine's sons was, I still want them to be able to communicate with God. And although that's not happening through, let's say, the methods and sequences that I'm giving Isaac and Ishmael, so to speak, I'm giving my other children other sequences and other ways of communication, technologies to connect to the divine that for Jews are forbidden, but for the rest of the world, they're considered gifts. So we Jews call them tum'ah, which is unpure, but that doesn't make them evil. That just makes them, as in, that's not relevant for Jews, but it's very relevant for non-Jews.
I don't know why I thought of it, but my friend is Romanian, and the idea of this is for Jews, this is for non-Jews. If anything his parents wanted him not to do, they would say that's what gypsies do. So it would be, he was like, he wanted to sleep over at a friend's house, and he's just like, no, you're not allowed to sleep over at someone's house. That's what gypsies do.
He ended up finding out that gypsies basically do everything fun in the world.
Well, it's very funny to me because Romanians are stereotypically gypsies.
Right.
And so they are the worst about wanting to distinguish between themselves and gypsies. They want to distinguish the most because they are mistaken for the most.
Small differences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, John Vervaeke points out, any two things are similar and dissimilar in an infinite number of ways. And like when you choose a particular thing to accentuate, the question becomes, why is that relevant? It goes back to how this discussion started, right? With okay, I've said a fact. Just because it is a fact doesn't mean the thing that gets me is when people don't realize, to some extent, I think my channel, like people claim I have no filter. It's like, no, I have a filter. I realize what I'm saying is can be the types of things people would say you generally should not say. But when things are so obvious, like, just say them. I'm going to grab some tea. I will be back.
I wonder about this. Sorry, go ahead.
I gotta go back home, but we'll talk, guys.
So,
all right.
I think Jacob has a filter. It's just the filter's completely open.
Well,
So,
it's interesting because
technically
I often feel that I kind of get like trying to see what people are getting at, and sometimes it's even like a trying to trigger someone is actually a way of exposing what they're getting at. Like, what is the reason why we're having this conversation right now? Are we able to have this conversation because you're particularly healthy or because you're particularly unhealthy? Both would make you available in the middle of the day or whenever it is for you to have this conversation.
It's 3 a.m. But like, I think when you use a phrase trying to trigger somebody, like you could say triggering somebody in that sense, or you could say like if you purposely know they have a psychological trigger and you're trying to delve into it for like either entertainment or like just curiosity, there's sort of two different things. Like if you're playing on like sheltered grounds and you're like, well, I wonder why this person's like really scared of like airports and they've got PTSD because they were like raped in an airport, for instance. Trying to like play around that trigger is like dangerous. Whereas like someone who's woke saying like, oh, you can't like use the word like still woman, it has to be still person. It's like it's not fireman, it's fire person. Like that sort of like stereotypical trigger, like sure, like you can explore those grounds because they're bullshit.
It's not male man, it's person
male
man.
Yeah.
That's my joke. That's my joke.
good.
Please spread it around. I don't know when I came
great.
up with that.
Person.
So Andre will remember this person, but we have Mitch.
Hey, man. I just want to say hey to you, Jacob.
Hey, how have you
Oh,
been?
so not to us. Okay.
I mean, you know, I've known Jacob for a while. I don't know. You guys, what? Hey, David. I know David.
Oh, okay. So it's just me.
Andre's been around the longest.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
I'm
we
the
haven't crossed
OG.
paths. That's all.
Yeah, probably not.
But now we have.
I've-
So can't say that anymore.
Well, you sound like a stand-up guy, Mitch. So like, I think we're on the same level.
Oh,
So
hey,
we
thanks a
can-
lot.
So Andre lives in Australia, and I think Mitch mostly only does the morning stuff, and like it's like 3 a.m. there, right, Andre?
Nearly
3
4.
a.m. Wow. Yeah, that might explain it.
Yeah. So how have you been, Mitch? How's the kiddo?
She's well, and she's getting to be real belligerent. But she's well.
She's not
and
2 years old yet.
She's 15 months old, and she started to get where she could sing. She can do Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and she can't say the words right, but she gets most of the syllables right, and she carries the melody. It's amazing.
Wow.
I know.
Precocious little daughter.
Yeah, she's something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how are you?
I've been better.
What's going on? Or have you guys already been talking about that for a long time?
No, we haven't been talking about it. I don't know. I don't know. I sometimes get in some of these moods, and I think David was right when he said, people when things aren't going their way, they go on Twitter and they start fighting with people, and I do that. So I should stop doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
the internet's a jungle.
It's an interesting thing because it's have you seen the pain test with the ball? Do you know that one? Okay, so you're in if ever you get invited to do a psychological experiment and you have to wait in a room before the experiment begins, just so you know, that is the experiment. Okay. So guy gets invited in to do some psychological experiment. He's left in a room. And they say, if you're bored, you can play with this toy. And all the toy is a ball. And when you push the button, it gives you an electric shock. It's very painful. And you can watch the video. The guy does it, I think, 3 times in 14 minutes. We are not designed to be bored. And we appreciate emotion that we have control over. So he's sitting there. He doesn't know how to deal with his own thoughts, his own time. And so he picks up this thing knowing the only thing it's going to do is cause him pain. He does it. And as soon as he does it, he's like he's mad at himself that he does it, but he can't. That's you on Twitter, Jacob.
Is this similar to the Milgram obedience experiments? Like
I don't
they where they had someone deliver an electric shock to someone in the other room.
Yeah,
And,
so
That was more. Yeah, Milgram was more about actually somebody else telling you what to do.
What? Yeah, it was obedience and authority. Like if they had lab coats on, they were more likely to drill the meter up more. But if it was just someone random, they'd just be like, "Oh, I'm not going to listen to you."
Well, so part of what differentiates this is that it's an examination of what people do specifically out of boredom. Because when you watch them, they don't have to do it; they're not instructed to do it, and they find it themselves unpleasant. Whereas with the Milgram, no one was actually getting electric shocked, right? Like
Yeah.
no amount of electric shock was actually occurring. Whereas with this, it actually was occurring,
Right.
and is a great little examination of what human beings are like. And one of the things I find so important is not to say this is what people are like, but instead to say this is what I'm like. I do this. Look at me,
David,
being an idiot.
are you standing up?
Am I standing up?
Yeah.
No.
I thought it looks like you're standing up. I thought maybe you had one of those standing desks, but
I mean,
It just has good posture.
that is incredibly good posture. Andre, are you an artist? Is that why you have that hand model?
I got given this for Christmas.
It looks like you've got a pretty good physical media collection in terms of, are those movies under the television set?
They're PS4 games.
Oh, PS4.
Like, I mean, mostly I've got books.
now
Yeah,
I am
it's-
standing up. As per your request.
No, I
Oh,
did not request.
We're doing
it.
a
I
standing,
thought
just
you were.
chatting, are we? Okay.
Jacob, is that steam? What is that steam? Is that like a essential oil or something, or tea, or? It looks like
It's tea, yeah.
you're- okay, nice.
Now we can pace.
Yep, I got
Yeah,
tea.
you're both standing up. It's so funny.
Yeah. So
I know a lot of people do a standing desk, but hey, let me ask you guys about when you pray. Is it supposed to be that you kneel, or is it supposed to be that you stand?
In Judaism, prayers are always said standing.
Why is that?
Well, there are things which are said, parts of the liturgy which are said while sitting. The only time we actually in any way kneel is on Yom Kippur, where there is a prostration. And that's supposed to be an actual prostration. Yeah, that was one of the things that always got me was
But
James the Just, Jesus's brother, was known for saying his prayers while kneeling, and that's not a very Jewish thing. So I didn't quite understand that.
What about, aren't there some psalms where David talks about prostrating and it as a means of worship?
Well, I mean, so the word Baruch, the word blessing, right? It literally refers to the knee, and so we bow
yeah, it's
in certain blessings.
well, Jacob with the Amidah,
Yeah.
isn't it Baruch? Like the
Yeah, there's four times. Yeah, 4 times in the Amidah when you do that. But the Amidah is literally called Amidah, means to stand.
Right. So you're standing. So Mitch, there's a prayer that you do. It's essentially for understanding. It's like the Our Father if it was much longer. Like
Much longer.
if every line was expanded into a prayer of its own, right? If every line was a paragraph. And at the beginning of it, it'll be like, blessed are you, Lord, King of the... Oh, no, it doesn't say...
You've heard my explanation of
Yeah.
The Our Father, right?
Yeah. We've talked about it, and I've when I was going to synagogue, that was one of the things that when I would go, I if I brought friends, I'd have to explain what the motion is. You do this like you bend your knees, then you go down, then you come up. So if you see images of men praying at the Wailing Wall, or images of men in synagogue, they'll be doing motions that are, if you've never seen them before, you're like, what is that?
Like a
they'll
seizure. It's like
I've seen some people who would put their right hand in, they take their right hand out, they'd put it back in, and then they do this right here. Exactly.
And they shook it all about? Is that what just happened?
It's
yeah. I saw that one coming.
Yeah, me too.
That means I need to work on that bit, okay? Or just trash it because
I mean,
I'm just
but that's
talking,
what it's
right?
all about.
Beautiful. It was beautiful. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
They say humor is surprise, right?
So, I mean, in my researches, the Catholic Catechism actually mentions that the early Christians said the Our Father 3 times a day, as and
Facing Jerusalem.
Yeah, and really, I didn't know that.
In many of the situations, they would face Jerusalem when they did it. Yeah.
And then there's the walking 3 steps back and 3 steps forward, which, I mean, I can explain, but like all of these motions, these are the types of things that have just been handed down, right? So the Amidah, it's very clear that the Amidah certainly existed during the time of Jesus and that his early followers knew about it. But I mean, it's basic. It's completely been erased. So Father Stephen was on that channel, Gospel Simplicity, and the guy asked what is a great question, and Father Stephen answered it in the only way that an Orthodox priest can, but ultimately, I think the answer to the question is quite obvious. And the question was, if Jesus were to walk into a church today or walk into a synagogue, which one would he feel more comfortable in? And I think it's very, very clear that if Jesus were to walk into a modern synagogue, even a Reform synagogue, he might be as like discombobulated at the way they have the pieces as I sometimes am. Like, they will do things, especially at a Reform synagogue, they will do things which I find disturbing, but he will recognize the elements. Whereas if he were to walk certainly into a Protestant church, but also into a Catholic or Eastern Orthodox church, I don't think he would. There are many elements he would not recognize, and then there would be a lot of elements he would feel are especially out of place because they are meant for the temple and not for a synagogue. And the things which he would expect the most would not be there. And that would be the Shema and the Amidah. And like Christians have completely so Justinian's code, as far as we know, banned the recitation of the Shema. And Christians, if they had anything like the Amidah, it was just saying the Our Father 3 times a day. And those are the 2 things you go to synagogue for, most of all. And they're just not there in Christian liturgy at all.
It's okay, man. He would feel comfortable if he found people worshiping in spirit and in truth.
Yes, but not worshiping him. I don't think he would feel comfortable being worshipped. Yeah. So what brought on this question about standing and kneeling?
Well, it's because I asked him if he was standing because it looked like he was standing, and I thought some people stand at desks, and then I thought, well, some people stand in prayer, and then I thought, well, I wonder what the Jacob freestyling about this would sound like.
Okay.
And now I know.
So okay, so what happened was in the temple when people brought their sacrifices, while the priests were actually bringing their sacrifices, people would stand there and say prayers, and that was referred to as ma'amadot, one way of saying to stand. And what happened was that after the destruction of the first temple, we believe that the prophets instituted the Amidah, which was Hosea 14:2, I believe. Let me look up. Calves of lips. Hosea 14:2. I was right. Yay. He says here, I will even bring it up as if we believe in the Bible. Hosea.
Oh yeah, that little gem that I can definitely read. Definitely can read Hebrew. This guy.
You'll get there. You'll get there eventually.
Oh, well, one of those is Aleph. I know that, and there's a bet.
There is an Aleph and there is a bet. Here,
That's that.
we'll
That's
do Hosea 14. 14:3 in a Jewish Bible. Kechu imachem devarim v'shuvu el havaya imru alav kol tisa avon v'kach tov u'neshalma farim sefatenu. Take with you words and turn to the Lord. Say to him, forgive all iniquity and receive us graciously. So we will offer the words of our lips instead of calves, is how they're translating it. Neshalma parim sefatenu. We shall pay, or we shall become whole with the calves of our lips. And so that became the great standing prayer.
interesting. I thought like standing was just like a Eastern Orthodox thing. When someone like I asked about like what do you like do in the liturgy, and like someone explained to me, it's like, well, there's the standing, and then you kneel for a bit, then you stand up again, and then there's something said in Latin, and then you kneel down. I'm like, is this standing and kneeling? And then Adam, the good Catholic boy, came along and he explained it. Like he's like, okay, so this is what you actually do. I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. Like the description I got off I thought it was just like a bunch of calisthenics. But when he's like, okay, so this prayer said, then this prayer said, and then like the priest walks up here, and like, okay, so it's basically lots of methodology and like its structure, and it's the whole ritual of it just turned up to 11.
Well, I mean, ritual is necessary, I think, and helps us, even though I don't do most of the rituals. Gavin says, I'm wondering how Jews treated their anointed king like David and how that differs from worship. So, I mean, again, I think if you start treating a king like a god king, that's a problem. And I think that's a problem if Jews do it to David, and I think that's obviously a problem when people did it with other people. There's human beings represent God in the world. We are made in the image of God, but we cannot take ourselves for gods.
I think, Jacob, that's part of the importance of the story of David dancing before the ark. Is that the ark? Let me grab the image. Looks like an Egyptian image that was one of those, was a chair that idols would be placed on. And here I have an image that might look more like. This is what I think the ark looked like. So poles in front, more like that, and you can envision it as a chair that then they would put the idol on, and then they would carry the idol around. Okay, and because we've discovered that if you compare that to how the Ark of the Covenant is used, Israel does not carve an image to put on the ark, but it still carves the chair. And so for David to be ushering in his underwear, the Ark of the Covenant, it's sometimes he's depicted as in his underwear. I don't know if you've seen that, Jacob.
I have not seen that, and I don't know that there's any biblical warrants for anything like that. Yeah.
But the image to me is supposed to be, this is the true king of Israel.
Right.
That David takes off his kingly robes, puts himself in the position of a servant wearing an ephod, and is like, here is your king, O Israel.
Right.
And it's to the empty chair.
Right.
And that's,
so this is, I say this a lot, right? So there is something significant about the Hebrew Bible having a temple, and the temple having a holy, and the Holy of Holies, and there being an ark, and there being all of the things and the trappings for God that the various temples had, except where there is supposed to be an idol, there was nothing, right? This is a self-referential idea of the ineffable and the ineffability of God. The message was that there's no idol there on the mercy seat, as Christians usually interpret it. And the problem, I believe, is when it came down to it, Christians placed Jesus where the Hebrew Bible says there should be nothing.
Right. Well, so I would say, though, that when people have visions of God, they picture him sitting on such a throne, and they picture him as a human being.
Okay.
Like at the beginning of Isaiah, it sounds like there's a guy sitting on a throne, and his robe is going into the temple. It sounds like a human being.
So let's pull up Isaiah.
Jacob, where would I possibly get the idea that human beings are the image of God? Where would I get such a crazy idea like that?
Are made in the image of God? It's Genesis 1. But
right.
Isaiah 66.
Well, and do you know the scene in the scene in the Quran is of how Satan fell is actually in Second Temple literature, where the angels are asked to bow before Adam because Adam, as the image of God, the angels are supposed to worship them, to treat the image with reverence, the way that people would anything. And Hasatan refuses, and that's how he falls in the Quran, which is particularly interesting because Muslims don't believe we are created in the image of God, but they have a story that was a rabbinic legend because of the idea of what being made in the image of God meant.
So, what did he fall off of? What did he just fall in general?
just in general. He was on a very tall stool. Yeah.
Thus says the Lord, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you would build for me, and where is the place of my rest? For all those things has my hand made, and so all those things came to be, says the Lord. But to this man will I look, to him that is poor and of contrite spirit, and trembles at my word. Ultimately, yes, when the Bible talks about God took us out with a mighty hand, and there is ways in which human beings represent God in the world, to the point where there are people who have various visions, and they tend to be very different visions when they see aspects of God, right?
Yep.
Including Ezekiel's vision, right?
Mhm.
At the same time, it is a mistake to make that make that it to reduce that symbolism to being literal idols. And I think that's what idolatry does.
Well, and I would, if you read the book of Revelation, Christ appears in a variety of images. And I think it's exactly what you're saying. The idea of like, if you stick to one image and you only see it as one image, then that becomes what idolatry is, as opposed to understanding that as one facet of a gem, where this is an image that you're currently looking at. Jacob, I had a good time, but I have to go. Maybe I will come back.
Okay, I'll see.
Yeah.
See, Dave.
Bye.
So this is actually something I've kind of been talking to Sam Titteman about, Transfigured, because I think some of the Unitarians, like the idea that Christians worship a pre-incarnate Jesus who always was,
Yeah.
is in many ways less idolatrous than what a lot of people who consider themselves Stephanie. Hello, I don't know Stephanie. Who consider themselves Unitarians, the way they view Jesus makes it even a little bit worse than the idea that there is an idea which Jesus embodied.
Yeah. Yeah, when I got to systematic theology, that was the part that always like bent my mind. It was like, so Jesus is like, you got the tripartite sort of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Jesus is God, but Jesus is a man, but also Jesus always existed. I'm like, huh? I don't get that. But I'll put that to the side, and then when then that like the pre-eternal idea comes up, I'm just like, I'm not gonna even try. Like, I'll just accept it. Like, I don't know what I think about it or not. On that side of it.
Oh no, not Andrew.
Oh
no.
Andrew, there were so many people waiting for you for D&D last night.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm real sorry.
So you see, Andrew failed the vibe checks. He wasn't being based.
Yeah.
See, that's how you apply those terms properly.
And
now it's gone. Oh, it's back.
Don't worry. Just disconnecting my headphones. How's it going, Sandy?
Colin,
Hey, Andrew. Good. I made it through 2 days of work, and now I feel slightly drugged and allergic to pain. But wasting my day sleeping. Jacob, what you just said about sorry, what you just said about your conversation with Sam. Yeah, if I was more functional, that's one of the things I was going to rewatch today. Because there's some really interesting stuff there. And can you explain again a little bit what you just said about Jesus being pre-incarnate is better than the alternative?
Okay, so obviously worshiping a human being is not anything Judaism in any way condones.
Right.
The idea that there is some sort of pre-incarnate eternal aspect that was incarnated into Jesus, which is that which Christians really worship, is less obvious idolatry than the idea that, oh no, we are actually worshiping just a man. Because at the very least, you can kind of say, oh, okay, what I really mean is that, you know, there is something about God which was represented by this man, this human Jesus, right? And this is what I mean when I say people who actually know their Trinitarian theology are less idolatrous than the vast majority of Christians, right? So when you ask most Christians questions, they don't understand the Trinity in any way that can in any way be defended by anyone. And they fall into things which by Christian standards are heretical. But that's part of the problem, right? So Islam, while it has, I mean, it doesn't have a very sophisticated concept of theology, and if you try to understand their theology better, you're going to end up with, I mean, there's all sorts of Christians who end up I mean, there's all kinds of Muslims who end up with all kinds of really horrible ideas about God, including the idea that God literally has a hand. Like, there are Muslims who will say God literally has a hand, right? So, in certain ways, a truly Trinitarian understanding of theology can be less problematic than what someone who may mean by saying there's only one God and then actually thinking like God has a physical hand. The problem is, like, the vast majority of Christians very much believe in a version of Jesus and God that all Christians, Jews, and Muslims can agree is clearly idolatrous. Like, it's a heresy within vast majority of Christians, according to Christian theology, are idolaters. That's not, I mean, that's not even a
Which
debate.
version is that?
Well, any version. Look, so this is the thing. Like, okay, let's say you take the
Put
large.
them apart in my head, and my head is a little bit today.
Let's take the largest group, right? Let's say the Roman Catholics. So they have a version of the Trinity, which the Eastern Orthodox say is idolatrous. So
At least some are not monarchical.
because I mean, we could the filioque. We could get into, like, for the past 2,000 years, Christians have been killing each other over their disagreements over how to describe the Trinity, right? So let's take the largest single group and let's say the Catholics actually have it correct, right? So that's 50% of Christians. That's 1 billion people. When you survey Catholics and you ask them, so there's a survey that Sam loves to quote constantly, where they asked Catholics certain things like, I think one of the statements was, is Jesus God's first and greatest creation, right? And now, according to all Christians, that is idolatry. To say that Jesus was created is idolatry, according to any version of the Trinity you have, right? And the more a Catholic went to church, the more likely they were to answer yes to that question, making them obviously a heretic in Christianity.
Right.
Right? So even if you take the definition which supposedly applies to the largest number of Christians, according to that definition, the Catholic definition, the Roman Catholic definition, vast majority of Christians, because they answer the questions about the Trinity in ways that are clearly heretical, they are engaging in something that Catholics, the Catholic theologians would say is idolatry. So, like, yes, I can have these discussions about the Trinity with knowledgeable Catholics. And let's face it, Sam and I probably, certainly Sam, but I probably know the Trinity better than most Christian pastors and priests and stuff. I
wouldn't agree, but probably.
No, I mean, if we're talking about propositional, like, I can describe modalism, patripassianism, right? I know all of these words. Yeah.
I don't know any of those
like
words.
Bio says, I have propositional knowledge of the Trinity, right? So if it comes down to like arguing all of these things, right? So Mark, yes, Age of Gnosis, believing that the knowledge is more important than the practice or participation. Legalism too, not great. Look, I am merely pointing out that according to their own definitions, right? Like, hey, I agree with you. Creedalism is silly, right? Ultimately, creedalism, right? The people who, so Larry Sanger, who was one of the founders of Wikipedia, and pretty large Twitter account. I got into a discussion with him because, I mean, I could pull it up, because he's like, if you don't believe Jesus is here, first things first. This is Larry Sanger. Christ here. I'll pull it up. Okay. First things first. Is Christ king? If yes, we can talk. If you say no, we have a problem. Right? And I said, I do not believe Jesus is king. What does that mean? Does that mean you have a problem with me? No, although I pity you, the king might have a problem with you. However, when it comes time to judge the quick and the dead at the end of the age, and my answer was, pity me all you like. I'll settle for not burning my synagogue, not attacking my children, not accusing me of killing God as if something that stupid is possible. Christians have a lot to answer for when the judgment comes, and calling Jesus Lord will not save any criminal. I was actually quoting Jesus. Says there's a lot of people who, say, who call me Lord, Lord, right? That I'm going to say to them, get away from me, antinomos, you lawbreaker. I never knew you, right? So I completely agree that, like, this idea that believing in Jesus is more important than what you do, like, that's just bad and wrong. So don't place that on me, Mark. I am just explaining that according to the people who say that what believing in a Trinity, like if you don't believe in the Trinity, you're going to hell, right? Well, look what the Trinity has wrought. The vast majority of Christians believe in things which clearly, according to Christianity, is idolatry. I mean, this isn't by my Jewish standard, right? This is according to Christian teachings. Vast majority of Christians believe in things which are forms of modalism or worse.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, Mark. Stephanie, do I know you, Stephanie? Actually, yeah, I think Stephanie and I did on Discord talk. If I remember correctly, Stephanie, you came from not the way, that other the guys with the ambassador campus in Pasadena, if I remember correctly. Pre-incarnate God's Son idea is what I grew up with. Something like firstborn and first fruits. Oh, I didn't think that was what you were talking. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Sorry. Equal in family status to the Father, but not equal in hierarchy. I mean, that's more monarchical. What's the consequences of idolatry for Gentiles? I would say worry about it a lot less than you should worry about whether you're killing or stealing or right. Like there's what bothers me the most is this Christian idea that my sins are forgiven because Jesus died for me, right? Like feel bad about your sins and the possibility of your sins. And the rest you can deal with yourself.
Trying to keep the love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. I don't know if that's the proper Jewish quote, but you know, keep that and the neighbor at the forefront of your mind, and most of the other stuff hopefully falls in place. Except for the Trinity, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
Oh. Andrew's got his life together, though.
Andrew's got his life together?
And he's got his car
I
together.
don't know Andrew very well. He couldn't even run a D&D campaign. Andrew.
Hey, Andrew, don't let them guilt you. Emma and I had this fabulous half-hour conversation last night, sitting in there waiting to see if D&D was going to start, which I was far too tired to stay for, but she enjoyed the conversation, no matter what else was said.
So what you're saying is you have more like entertainment with him not there than you do with him here. When Andrew's not there, it's fantastic. But when he's here, it's like, oh, it's
Okay,
Andrew.
it's settled. The D&D campaigns are better off when Andrew's sleeping.
Well, not quite what I said, Andrew, but
Glad to hear it, Stephanie. I generally don't like when like real people show up on my channel and I don't know them because I feel bad about that. Fake people, now that's different. And there are a lot of fake people. There's this guy on Twitter trying to argue with me that Stalin was Jewish.
are you having fun with it?
No.
I mean, I don't know what Stalin was. So he wasn't Jewish. He was like, what was he? He's like Christian.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Okay. Like, that's just a fact I didn't know. So
yeah, he almost became a priest. Like the idea that Stalin was in any way Jewish is just hilarious.
Yeah.
He almost is this like my son when he was like 2.5 or 3 years old, who said, I want to be a cop. But if that doesn't work out, maybe I'll be first dictator of the world. I might be a priest, but
Surprisingly enough, I mean, a lot of people go into police for the wrong reasons.
So it's like as farcical as saying, well, like Hitler was Jewish, right? Like it's like a secret, but like he was really Jewish.
That actually has more of a basis in fantasy, fantasy wishes of people than Stalin, who very clearly came from completely nothing Jewish. It's scary when people want to kill idolaters, so it's probably good to lead with the statement that says murder is worse than idolatry. Yeah, I mean, look, wanting to kill people, like, this really gets me when people have this idea that, like, the Bible teaches go around killing idolaters. Like, you have to seriously and deliberately misread your Bible to believe that. Very, very clearly. Like, it is so clearly not the case in the Bible that it's almost like trying to correct people, like, yeah.
Just gonna say it. I think murder's bad, so you don't need to say like not go at murder, but like idolatry is bad, but murder is also pretty bad. So that's not murder.
Yep.
I used to say this is why God invented children, so that we would learn to be kind regardless of what we really wanted to do. But then I hear about, all the child sacrifice way back when, and I'm like, nah, we're still doing it. It's probably not a thing that God invented children, but some people it helps. Penance. My mom used to say you only get what you deserve. And then she told me you only got what John deserved because his children were just as energetic and just as up to anything possibly dangerous and just as up to like a billion things you would never think to block them from doing. Don't kill people. It's not a good thing.
Okay. If you reckon.
I reckon.
I mean, like, I was thinking about it, but like now that you've told me not to, but not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've changed the corner here.
You have a cat, Andre. I'm pretty sure most horrible people don't have cats. Cats would be too smart to be with people like that.
What's that saying about dog people?
Well, why do all the movies depict all the villains with a cat?
They're wrong.
Because the cat is like cunning, and it's like you don't know what it's thinking. A dog is just like transparent. It's like you got the ball. It's like ball, ball, ball. The cat, you like look at it and you're like, what are you thinking about? And it just looks at you, and then it looks a different way. And it's like, wait, it's not look. Is it looking at me? Is it thinking about me? What's it thinking about? Like, you ever look at a cat looking at a window? It's like they're practicing stoicism. They practically like are going like this as they're looking at birds. But dogs just like will bark
They're
at like
definitely not
a leaf.
thinking about murder.
Yeah. I mean, probably not.
Hey, Andrew. What's up?
Super random question.
For
For you, Jake.
Oh.
3 cardinal sins: murder, idolatry, and sexual immorality. Right?
Correct.
Perfect. Let's go. Yeah. So I was reading the Book of Jubilees, And
By the way, it's not clear that those 3 cardinal sins are considered. All 3 of them are as cardinal. So a Jew is supposed to die rather than commit any of those sins. It's arguable whether a Noahide is required to give up his life. For any of those, there's debates about any of those. Most people would say murder, yeah, but even that's not clear. But go ahead.
yeah, I was. You haven't read it?
Nope. I read Father Stephen's description of it.
Okay. Well, there's a definite idea that of the whatever Noahide covenant leading to whatever, I don't know what you guys call it, Mosaic covenant or something. Kind of like
Sinai, yeah. Sinai.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because they have this idea that it was kind of like a book. It was recorded down, and then that was passed down through Enoch to Noah to Abraham and Moses, and yeah. So I was wondering if the 3 cardinal sins are so important because they're mentioned in the Noahide laws, and they're given more importance in the whatever Sinaitic or whatever covenant.
Sinai. So we learned that the 3 cardinal sins we call them the cardinal sins because they are meant to prevent us from they are considered complete. I'm not sure that it has anything to do from the rabbinic derivation. I mean, I haven't actually studied the Talmud where these are derived. I'm not sure that those are actually. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's if there's any connection. The 3 cardinal sins are included in the covenant of Noah as sins, which you should expect. But I'm not really sure because there are things from, so for example, do not steal, right, is one of the 7 Noahide laws, but we don't actually believe that is the proper translation of lo tignov, which is usually translated do not steal in the 10 Commandments, because our understanding is that the 10 Commandments refer to capital sins, and stealing is, it's a sin, but it's not a capital sin in Judaism in the same way. So just stealing, probably the proper translation of lo tignov, which gets translated as do not steal, would be do not do not mug, do not commit robberies, right? Because that puts a person's life in danger, but it probably should be do not kidnap, right? Because that's what it's talking about in the Ten Commandments. And so there are things in, or ever minachai, right? So, what do you call it? Cruelty to animals is in the 7 laws of Noah, and it's not. It's obviously not in the 10 Commandments, and it's not at that level. So I'm not sure being listed among the
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The no-hide laws are a summation, the same way the Ten Commandments are. Something like that.
No, it's not a question of summation. These are things which all human beings are expected to recognize are sinful. They're just not being put at the highest level the way the like the 10 Commandments. Why are they more important than the other 603 commandments, right? Because they have a prominence specifically, right? Or the 3 cardinal sins. They have a specific way in which they are more important than other, like there's a values hierarchy. The 7 laws of Noah are not more or less important. They're simply those which are incumbent upon all human beings. And in that way, they are more important because they are incumbent on all human beings. But they're not the most grievous of sins, right? So you should kill a lobster before you cook it. That doesn't mean that it's the most grievous sin in the world. It really isn't. And Happy wants to go for her walk.
You can take.
I got to take her for a walk this morning.
Have you heard this Talmud
Go for
thing?
it.
Some crazy stuff in here. Apparently, a beehive is an immovable property. If you use it to underwrite a prosbul, cannot become unclean, and if it does, you have to have a sin offering. So, you know about beehives.
Where is that from?
6 order Torahs, purities. in the
Yes, but
Talmud.
where are you reading that from? Where are you reading that from?
Chapter 3 of Talmud selection.
They decided to include that in their selection from the Talmud. Okay.
Yeah, it's a 12th tractate. Oxen stalks. So
Uxin.
it starts off with onions, and then it talks about beehives.
Yes. I wasn't doubting that it's there. I was just wondering why
It's a wheat.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess
it's a very at the very end. Like
if, I guess if it's a sampler, yeah, you put a sampler.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, Happy is going to be very mad at me if I don't take her for a walk. I am going to end the stream. I will talk to you guys
We
later.
want Happy to be happy. So see you later.
All right.